Are you familiar with modern cosmologists?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Astrophysicists, are they still saying this sort of stuff? Is it still an awkward fact?
It's
or is it? Does it seem less awkward because the theory of the multiverse has become more sophisticated and therefore seemingly possible?
Right. Well, I was rereading Jastrow the other day, and I was surprised at how everything that's going on in the contemporary conversation is pretty much anticipated already in his book. So already he writes this in 78, and he's already talking about the possibility of a multiverse, and he also talks about why it probably doesn't work. And it's pretty much the same thing today. Okay. So, an update, I would really recommend this book to our
New
viewers.
Proofs for the Existence of God.
Yeah, by Father Spitzer. Yeah, Father Robert Spitzer. Wonderful book. Very dense, very tough reading at parts, but worth working through. And so if people want to go do a deep dive into why doesn't the multiverse work, why not an oscillating universe, why not different possibilities, Spitzer, does that deep dive and can give you all that data and all that evidence. And so, and another book I'd recommend is Stephen Meyer, Return of the God Hypothesis. He goes into some of that material as well. And I would say no, Jastrow's initial reaction to the Big Bang, it holds true to this day. Yes, Stephen Hawking went to his grave resisting the theistic implications of Big Bang cosmology and trying to come up with a mathematical explanation of how it could be that despite the fact that Einstein's mathematics, special and general relativity, go back to this point, but Hawking was working on theoretical math that would allow, some kind of pre-existent universe. Okay. He never pulled it together by the end. It's kind of like, it reminds me of laying a carpet. You know how when you're trying to lay a carpet and it's too short on one side, so you get that carpet kicker, and you pull it over there, but then that pulls up on the other side. A lot of times when you're trying to get math to work, it's like that. It's like I can get the math to work over here, but it's pulling up the math over there. And so Hawking was just trying to lay the carpet of mathematical theory that would get around, and he never succeeded. And right now, let's see, Roger Penrose is trying to do that. Trying to come up with a mathematical explanation for a kind of an oscillating universe that would be like a universe that has a beginning and then expands, but then somehow becomes the cause of another universe that lasts thereafter. Okay,
kind of like when you blow a bubble and a bubble comes out of it.
Yeah, something like that, but a whole chain so that we're just in one eon of a continually oscillating universe that had no beginning and has no end.
Well, there's also the idea, correct me if this is different or not, but the idea of the big crunch. So we have the expansion of the universe, which will eventually crunch in on itself and then just keep going back and forth.
Right. Yeah. And the problem with that is we're not crunching. In fact, the newest evidence shows that we're actually expanding even faster than we thought. So the current evidence shows we're never going to crunch. We came from apparently a point, and it's going to continue to expand, and the math and the evidence does not point to an eventual recollapse. It didn't in Jastrow's day. Already people were proposing that back in 78, and Jastrow in this book says, no, there's not enough gravity to pull everything back. It looks like everything's going to expand and we're not going to come back. Because that would be nice for some people. Some people like to have bang, crunch, bang, crunch.
Yeah.
Okay. Spitzer explains...
Because then you've got an infinite universe.
Yeah. And Spitzer explains why that doesn't work. Okay. Because you still got the second law of thermodynamics, and so things are going to wind down. Yeah. And even apart from Big Bang cosmology, even just based on the second law, and the second law, states that, as matter and energy go through time, entropy always increases. Entropy is disorder. Okay, so you're always moving from a state of more order to less order. And some people think that that's what time is. Time is the moving of things from order to disorder. But anyway, we don't.
My body agrees with that.
Yeah, I feel that very much.
Yeah, I want to ask two questions that I think will help people understand what cosmologists talk about when they talk about the Big Bang. And they're two questions that don't work, but it shows what we mean when we talk about the Big Bang. What happened before the Big Bang?
Yeah, well, a good question. I don't think it's a bad question. But Einstein's math points that there's no time before the Big Bang.
So it's like asking what's north of the North Pole.
Yeah. You reach this point and that's it. So whatever is before the Big Bang is outside of time. Okay, and that's how we have traditionally thought about God. So again, you want to, the Big Bang really lends itself to the Kalam argument. Did William Lane Craig do the Kalam argument when you had him on?
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
For example, the second premise of the Kalam cosmological argument.
Why don't you lay the whole thing out for those who aren't aware?
That argument has 3 steps. 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. 3, therefore the universe has a cause. Now, the second premise, the universe began to exist, is one to which scientific evidence is relevant. And contemporary cosmology provides, honestly, very, very powerful evidence in support of the truth of that second premise. So in this case, you've got a philosophical argument for God's existence that contains a premise which is powerfully supported by contemporary science.
Actually, you got to watch this. I had Jimmy Aiken debate William Lane Craig on the Kalam argument, but they focused solely on the philosophical evidence.
Okay.
Jimmy strenuously disagrees with Craig. He agrees with the Kalam argument. I mean, he agrees with the premises and the conclusion, but he doesn't think the philosophical version gets you there.
Oh, interesting.
Which is interesting. I'd love to get the two of you talking together.
Yeah. I'll have to look at that.
But certainly from a scientific point of view.
Right. So, anything, the Kalam argument is anything that comes into existence has to have had a cause other than itself. That's the first premise.
Right.
The minor premise is the universe has come into existence. That's what we know from the Big Bang. And so the conclusion is, well, then the universe had to have a cause other than itself. All right. So again, Einstein's math shows, before the Big Bang, if you want to even use that term before, okay, there is no space, time, matter, or energy.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there is a cause of the universe, then it's got to be very powerful. It has to be very intelligent.
Immaterial.
Yep. And it has to be outside of space. It has to be immaterial. So, this is this is the way we've conceived of God in the Judeo-Christian tradition. So again, very strong.
But what's fascinating about the Kalam argument is obviously the Kalam argument predates all of this, our understanding of Big Bang cosmology. It's something that Bonaventure was a proponent of, that Aquinas engaged with. So if you are one of these people who hold to the Kalam argument based on philosophical grounds, and then this scientific argument comes along, it just it makes the argument all the stronger. There's 2 strands now.
Yeah. It makes it very strong. And again, it's not just people that are predisposed to be religious or to believe in God that feel the force of that. You have Einstein and Hoyle trying to avoid. And another thing I want to mention, that's when we read about the history of science, you see that non-scientific motivations come into play and motivate how scientists go about their work. And Jastrow documents that. It's not me saying this, Jastrow documents how a lot of astrophysicists didn't like the way things were going with the development of Big Bang cosmology and said outright, I find this reprehensible, or, I really don't want this to be true, et cetera. So I think that's a very important point to get across, especially to students, et cetera, and people are getting formed and trying to make sense of the world, that the scientific enterprise does not consist of a bunch of people that are completely unmotivated and completely objective and just follow the truth wherever it leads. Now, I'm not criticizing people in natural science, but I am saying they're humans like the rest of us, and we all have ulterior motives. We all have views of the world that we would like to reaffirm, and we all have to be conscious of that. And try to avoid just believing things that we want to believe, and try to follow the truth where it leads, as it were.
And then at the same time, realizing that just because I want something to be true doesn't mean it's false.
That's true too.
Yeah. So I might find the idea of atheism comforting.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm afraid of hell.
Yeah.
And maybe atheism's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I might like the idea of a providential, all good God, and that brings me comfort. But just because it brings me comfort doesn't mean I go, well, therefore I have to hold that in a great degree of skepticism.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that we can communicate. I think that, as I said, nature pushes back. Nature gives us data that we can struggle and talk about. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.